Questions every single day. Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia is our reader today. Alexander, what's our first question?
First question this morning is coming from Zach Stylesmith in Chautauqua, New York. I haven't done any cloud production beyond utilizing Companion Cloud. What are the benefits to cloud production over local production?
Guy Cochran, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, there's quite a few depending on if you have a team or if you're just by yourself. But the biggest ones are you don't have to own it. So if you were to go to Best Buy, so a typical production, let's say you have 3 machines, 3 instances is what we call them. That would cost you maybe $6,000 in computers, whereas $1.25, $1.25, you're at $3.75 per hour. So at the end of the month, if you're going to use that machine for, let's say, 4 productions, you just kind of got to do the math. So it's kind of a buy versus rent. And then the other thing is just the resiliency, being able to have machines that are on a power generator so that you don't have to worry about getting hit. And if you are even that worried about a whole physical data center, you can have multiple data centers. So that's the other thing is you can duplicate and have your same, let's say, a vMix instance on the East Coast and on the West Coast. And I've been on productions where we've had both and a failover button, and we've had to use it. So there is that redundancy. The other aspect of it is if you do have a team, being able to let them splash top, or in the AWS world, there's nice DCV that's free to come in and remote control one of those machines, and you can use Companion if you set up another instance to, well, the way we do it is we use another instance to tail scale or use something to get in there so that our USB Stream Decks can access those machines. The other thing is elastic IP addresses. So if you have an IP address at home that you don't want everybody to know about, in the cloud, you can get a bunch of they call them elastic IPs. So you can use them for a session, or you can get ones that you can use all the time. So those are like $5 or something like that. So the other thing is no bloatware. So when you buy a machine, often from these manufacturers on like Amazon or something, you'll get like McAfee or something on there, and it could really wreak havoc during a production. So having these clean Windows servers machines is super nice. In the cloud, we also can do NDI as long as you get your peering set up right. You can have NDI cross all these instances. So you could say, I want a cutting machine, I want a machine that's just for ingest, and then I want a machine that pushes out to YouTube. That's our encoding machines. What else? I'm sure I'll think of more, but those are the basics of it.
Yeah, Courtney Gooden, you had some things to add here?
No, what Guy said. The only thing I can add
It's pretty comprehensive.
A, as he mentioned, you don't have to buy a bunch of equipment, and B, portability is you can be anywhere. You can spin up machines from your hotel room as long as you've got a decent connection somewhere to control them, and so you're not dragging around a bunch of hardware, especially if you do a traveling show or you have to edit something while on the road. It's good for that, or if you're going to do live streaming, collaboration also is the other main key, which you mentioned, is you can have different people assign different tasks, each one coming into that machine. You won't have to manage all those inputs if you have a machine set up at your own server, your own hardware at home, for example.
Jeffrey Powers?
Doing a lot of remote stuff. It's very important to tell them, hey, or figure out where you're going to be and how you're going to use it. And the reason why what I'm saying here is I've been in places like Fortune 100 companies doing live streams. And when you do stuff like that, they tie down the network majorly. So if you don't have your own network connection, you could possibly not be able to get to your instance if you go for there. So you want to check with the venues that you're going to and go from there. But the big thing is if I don't have to take another computer to do one thing, it saves my back, it saves my arms, it saves my wallet because I don't have to pay for another piece of luggage, and the logistics are so much better. So, but it's very important to check before you implement when you're going out on the road.
Guy, you had another thought?
Yeah, if you don't mind me throwing in some of the disadvantages, just because there are some downsides. So ingest is free. So if you set up a couple cameras as your contribution sources, video coming into the cloud is going to not cost you a penny, but going out is where it will cost you money. So if you do need to bring a big fat signal back down, you're going to get some sticker shock, because it's not just the $1.25 for the instance, it's your egress fees, and they can eat you alive. So we have a way of getting our multi-viewers back to remote producers, and those can be very high quality, or we could make them kind of like Zoom quality, where we dumb down the compression. If you think of it like a JPEG to quality 1 versus quality 10, you can either have pristine looking video and you can get a bill for $300 at the end of the month, or you can have, maybe $50 because you went with JPEG level 1. And you could play with this stuff. I'd say go to like Shadow PC if you're a PC person. If you're a Mac person, go to Mac Stadium. So Oliver and I did some tests before we bought this machine, where we rented a Mac Stadium, and this machine right here is sitting here. I'll call it the Cochrane Cloud. This is my 10 gig connection. I'm fortunate that this city that I live in has the fastest internet in the world, or in the country for residential. So it costs $300 a month, but this machine cost us $500 a month to have 24/7. All the time in Mac Stadium. So we could use their cloud, and we can get basically all you can eat. They don't charge any egress fees, but if you want to try this out using like Mimo Live, Wirecast, maybe Final Cut, you want to do something in the cloud, I invite you to just go spin up a Mac Stadium Mac Mini for $100 a month and get started and play with it. It's really impressive. Once you get into it, it's addicting. I mean, and there's a bunch of free AWS skill builder courses I recommend. If you're into this, go tear through them. I mean, there's a lot of learning in there. I've been through dozens of hours getting all these skills, so I recommend going through some of their ones that are just for producers. It's a very high level overview of cloud to get your teeth a little more sank into what's going on.
Zach, hope that helped you clarify your thinking. Let's move on to our next question.
This one's from the QR code, John Dempsey in London, UK. What are the panel's suggestions on cable labeling? Any industry standard practices, color, length, type, etc.?
I just don't want to have to say cable labeling 14 times fast. Courtney Gooden's going to start us off here. Courtney?
Cable labeling, cable labeling, cable labeling. Yes,
it's not going to do it well in the long run.
I like to use the Brothers P-Touch cable labeling products that come in a variety of colors, which you can get these little cartridges, so you can pop in a different color for different cartridges. And then so you can label your cables. And what I like to do is put the label longitudinally on the wire, and then get some of this heat shrink tubing of the correct diameter for whatever wire it is you're putting it on, whether it's an audio cable, and then slide that over the wire. Of course, you have to do this before you put the connectors on, so it is a project. It's not something you can do after the cable's already assembled. And then you heat shrink that down tight over the label, and it keeps the label from getting ripped off or damaged, and it stays on that cable forever. And then if you have for color coding, these Nutric for BNCs, these Nutric rear twists come in a variety of different colors here, red, green, blue, etc. And so you put the same color on both ends. Some people colored the ends differently, but in a if it's a directional cable, like XLR cables, where you don't want to mistakenly run a 100-foot cable and realize you got the female at the wrong end. Yep.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah. So for me, it really depends on what you're doing. If you're talking like a 6-channel connection back and forth, putting a label on in a whip situation and color coding it. If you're going to be dismantling it and reconnecting it every time, that's a great thing. There's many different companies out there that allow you that option. This is one of them. This is on Amazon. It's called Mr. Label. They're already labeled. They're already color coded. If you're doing a lot of cabling, like lots of cables, color coding is not going to make much of a difference when it comes to individual ones. So color coding becomes more handy when, let's say you have campus A, campus B, then you put a color on one, put a color on the other, and go back and forth. This is another a way to do it. These little tabs are out, not completely on the cable. They can rip off, absolutely, but for a lot of people, when you're in a server room, it's like really hard to get to some of these cables. So having these little tabs out there is really a godsend for trying to figure out where the cable is. And then this is a favorite one. I always loved having these types of loop cables around because they didn't heat sink into the cable themselves. So if you have it running around in a on a server where it's looped through and down and over, you could actually take the loop and actually move it with the cable and follow the cable. I would put labels on both sides of the cable and maybe even in the middle of the cable if you have a long run for the cable. That way you know exactly where it is even without having to go back to each end.
Don't forget this show is built entirely around your questions. We're always taking them. You can ask questions, chat about the questions, and vote on them. And in Mocana, that's our live Q&A system. If you go to officehours.global/join, that's officehours.global/join, we'll send you an email within a day or two. And once you've done that, you can get into the system. Then you can ask, discuss, and vote on the show's questions. And the voting is important because the questions that get the most votes pre-show are the ones we push to the top of the list and we spend more time answering. So in that way, you kind of program the show. Let's go on to our next highest debated question.
This one is for me. Courtney, have you used a touchscreen display with Windows 11 Pro? I have two Viewsonic TD22330 displays connected to a MeLe Quieter 3. When I turn them on, Chrome never remembers where my windows are. I have two Chrome windows, one on each screen. And also, for some reason, dragging one window to the other doesn't seem to work. Windows 11 seems to want to snap to the edge, and it's not traversing from one display to the other with my finger, which is annoying.
Courtney, can you help Alexander out?
Well, I don't know about the not displaying. As long as you have the windows aligned in the display manager, so that your windows can be set offset so that one is higher than the other, one's above the other. So make sure it's in the direction that you're trying to drag it when you're dragging one window to the next. I haven't tried using the touch. Oh, you're trying to drag it using the touch screen from one touch to the next touch screen? I don't think that works. You can drag it with a mouse. The mouse works just fine, but if you put my finger on the window and try to drag, it doesn't seem to want to go from one display to the other. Yeah, touchscreens are not. They define themselves based on the particular USB signal or serial signal that you plug the touchscreen connection into. So it doesn't talk to the other screen. So you'd have to drag it across the mouse, and then once it's on the other screen, then you can utilize it. That's probably the problem you're running into. All my laptops have touch screens, but I've never used it with an external touch screen like that. It looks nice. I like that 22-inch touchscreen Viewsonic. Looks nice, and it has a variety of inputs, including VGA, amazingly enough. HDMI VGA, and I think DisplayPort. So looks handy. But I think the touchscreen goes over USB, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, that may be the problem. Some of the newer touchscreens that have USB-C, that carry video over USB-C, DisplayPort, combination USB-C, DisplayPort, then it would carry the touch signals over the same single cable. So that may work, but usually one screen doesn't talk to the other screen as far as touchscreen moving from window from one to the next.
Interesting discussion. I hadn't thought about mapping multiple screens so that touch works on all of them. That does seem like a challenge. Let's go to the next question.
This one's from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. What is your dream tiny computer with great price and performance for streaming and video editing, such as the AMD Ryzen 7 8845HS mini PC NucBox K8 Plus at $389.99 with a budget under $1K?
Name just rolls off your tongue. Guy Cochran, can you help him out?
Yeah, so we bought a couple of these minis forum computers. I'd be looking at those. There's a couple of reasons why. Again, that whole no bloatware thing is super intriguing. The time that you could spend trying to clean up a system might be the cost of the actual computer by the time you tear all your hair out and have to get a wig. No, basically this one here is a new one that's shipping in April. It's called the AIX1 Pro. And what you're looking at is the amount of cores that this thing has. So the one that I bought is the one right before this, and so it doesn't have as many cores as this one does. So this is an AMD Ryzen with 12 cores, 24 threads. Is that right? 12 core? That must be the small one. Let me double check, because the one that we have is this one, right? Where is it? Oh, it's this actual machine. So this is it right here. It's so 16 cores, 22 processors is this one called the Adaman X series, and it comes with 32 gigs of RAM. And this one's about $750 depending on the configuration. We're using it to run NDI Bridge, and it does a transcoding, and it's got the Intel Arc card in it, and it's also got the ability to hook up an eGPU. So if later on you decide you want to add like a 4090 hot rod graphics card to it, you can just plug it into this PCIe bus. So even though it's a small form factor computer, you can put in these big old cards later on down the line, and it's got 2 Ethernet slots. So I really like the Minisform line, the MSO1, and this new one that's coming out, as well as the Adaman that I just showed you.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I like the Minisform too. They're pricey. They're on the higher end of the NUCs that are out there. The B-Links has the Ryzen 9 machines, which would give you a large number of cores with a large number of threads. In that kind of neighborhood of $400, or at least under $1,000, depending upon how much RAM you have and how much, if you put a terabyte of storage in it, et cetera, it can bump it up closer to $1,000. But they're pretty much all in that 5x5 form factor that can be mounted with a base mount on the back of a monitor, which makes them really handy to have. Or if you want to keep them separate and access the ports frequently. I don't like to put them on the back of the monitors because I like to plug and unplug stuff from them constantly. So yeah, I would say the B-Link, the higher end B-Link Ryzens, the Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9s, and the fill it up with as much RAM as that particular board will take. Sometimes they're limited to 16 gigabytes, sometimes they're 32 gigabytes. But a lot of them do have upgradable RAM, depending on whether they have 2 slots or 1 slot. You can max them out, and also NVMe SSDs built in, which you can then replace those later. Some of them have 2 slots built in, and some of them also have dual 2.5 gigahertz net connections, RJ45s in them, so you can hook up 2.5 gigabit Ethernets.
Let's go to our next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York, USA. I know it's geared for streamers, but the BEACN mix looks compelling for tactile controls of audio sources. What are the panel's thoughts?
My thought initially is I would never be able to find that with BEACN. That's not how I would spell it. So BEACN mix. Interesting. Jeffrey Powers, do you know about this product?
Yeah, there's a few different products out there that have this ability. This is probably the first one that actually has it with a visual monitor on it, besides the Stream Deck Plus, and so basically what it is a USB device that connects up to your Mac, connects up to your PC, and then you have to program it. You have to say, okay, this audio source goes to this dial, this audio source goes to this dial. It's a lot easier on a Windows machine than it is a Mac. So I'm assuming that there's a piece of software that gets installed that does the control for at least the Mac, probably both, which adds a little bit of bloatware onto your machine. Probably not going to be a big deal on that. For the price, $149, all this does is control volume. You could spend like $20, $30 more and get that Stream Deck Plus, and then you'll have some extra buttons and be able to use it for more than just volume, because the Stream Deck Plus does have a strip on the bottom that will, when you turn the dials, it will show volume control. And I think that's the biggest thing about this is if they were just dials like some of these others are, that they get really confusing as to what level the volume is at and how you have to adjust it, raise it or lower it to get the right volume for you.
We truly appreciate the fact that you all show up here every morning. For a lot of people, particularly here in the U.S., it's a reasonable time. But for people overseas, it can be super early in the mornings, which is why we're part of the reason why we're mounting extra shows kind of in different time zones to help you. Extra Hours takes place on Monday. Grant Whitehead in Australia kind of hosts that show. And so it happens at, I think, 5 or 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time instead of the normal 7 a.m. start that we do every day. David Paskin is doing the rundown, and that will happen tonight. So David's show is tonight at, I believe, 6 p.m. Pacific. It might be 5. I haven't looked lately, and the time changes always confuse me. But if you look at officehours.global and do a search on the rundown, you should be able to find the specific details on when it starts in your area. David takes a deep dive into the why behind the latest tech that's reshaping the world, and that's every Thursday evening. In the evening, 6 o'clock p.m., I'm told from the notes that I get to see in front of me for both shows. So 6 p.m. tonight, the rundown with David Paskin. Next question.
This one's from Brody Hefner in New York City. What do the panel members currently recommend as a hard mute switch, ideally to include a visual indicator? Anything new or still just the same old options?
We're talking about that in the back of the channel today. Guy Cochran, what is your preference for a hardware mute?
There is a new device. I haven't got my hands on it yet, but it is by the Fiber guys, and it's called the Stream Announcer. It's a USB announce console, $495. So connect your talent to the cloud. It shows up as two USB interfaces into your system, and it's got a little display there that tells you when you're muted and not, but you can see the big mute button. You got volume, you got mic levels. That you could read all the specs, but Jonas was super excited about this because he wants to be able to control people's talents or announcers from afar, and this allows you to do it. So he was super excited about it and pointed it out. So I'll put a link in the chat to the Fiber Guy website, and that is the Stream Announcer.
Interesting. I would be interested in that myself. A little bit pricey for USB, but who knows? I wonder if those switches are tactile in terms of the fact that you can tell if it's down or up based on touch, or if they're more momentary. Only experience with the unit will tell. So, looks interesting. Thank you for the question. We got a couple more people who want to weigh into this. Let's go to Alexander Knight.
Yeah, that looks interesting. I'm always curious about how loud the buttons for me are. The sound of the buttons is super, super important. I haven't really seen a lot of changes in this market, but I have to say at $495, I'm assuming that's the US, that's less than half the cost of a Studio Technologies 205, which of course does more. I mean, it has the 205 has Dante and other stuff like that. But I don't understand why somebody hasn't released a simple, all I want is just somebody to come out with a single mute switch that is quiet, that has an LED light that turns red when you're on. That's it. I don't understand why people haven't been making this. Every year I send emails to my contact at Radial Engineering. You know, Radial's known for making a lot of really useful solution boxes, mostly for musicians and audio engineers. And I said, come on guys, just seriously, if you made a inexpensive mute switch that was quiet and marketed that towards like content creators, podcasters, YouTubers, you'd probably sell a lot of them.
I think it may be more complex than you think, and the reason I say that is because I tend to use these, the Rolls mic switches, the MS-111s. These things are only about, I think, $55, $60, something like that. They're not very expensive, but as you can hear, it is truly a mechanical latch switch, and so it makes a actual sound that if it's too far close to the mic, it's not so much the switching transient, it's the actual sound of the latch for the mic. The thing that I love about it, though, is that because this button, once it is engaged, is so low, you can literally rub your finger across the top and you know whether you're depressed or not depressed in terms of the button. Not psychologically, of course. And if it's not working, you will become psychologically depressed, because I've been struggling with this all day because my old one, I think, is dying. So I've got one that's in active use right now, and I'm not, see, I just unmuted it and it's still there. So there's something failing in the switch. I will see if I can replace it with this one. Maybe it'll be better and maybe it won't. Anyway, Courtney Gooden, you had some thoughts.
Yeah, for the same price as the $500 USB one you mentioned there, you can get a Rodecaster Duo. I'm using Rodecaster Pro right now. course, the Rodecaster Duo has a mute switch. Look, right there. And, I can use mine to mute, and you didn't hear any noise when it switched in, and I can switch it in and out. It has a light that lights up when it's muted, and kills your audio through the mixer. And you have, with the Rodecaster Duo, you've got 4 mic preamps and 4 mic mute switches, so you can mute any individual person. Just press the button and it lights up brightly red to let you know that it's muted. This is problematic. A mechanical mute switch is difficult if you're going to use any kind of phantom powered microphone, because the problem is, if there's only a couple of ways to mute that mic. You can shunt the two audio leads together or to ground. And that's a problem if it's carrying 48 volts. You can't shut it to ground because it will short out the 48 volt power supply. And you can't just disconnect it because then you've got an open audio feed, which can either generate hum, or the fact that when you reconnect it, it's going to generate a huge DC pulse, which you're going to hear as a big pop. And a lot of times, if it just shunts with a resistor and a capacitor, shunts the two audio images, the audio feeds together with a capacitor, it leaks, which is what Bill's does with that mechanical switch. It tries to shunt with a capacitor, and we can still hear it if he shouts when it's muted, so it leaks a little bit through that capacitor. So it's kind of problematic to do mechanically, and one of the best ways is to do it in a preamp itself. Like the Rodecaster does.
Fascinating question. I just swapped this out, so we'll see if it's any better or not, and whether or not you can hear me when it's supposedly muted. But let's see. Courtney Gooden. Oh, you just weighed into that, so I think we've probably covered that as much. We will continue down the path of the ultimate mic mute for all of us, and if we can find one that's under $1,000, we'll all be happy. Next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York, USA. 3D Maker Pro has a Kickstarter for an interesting looking LiDAR scanner. If Alex sees this in time, would love to hear his take.
Jeffrey Powers is going to help us out here. Jeffrey?
Yeah, I'm no Alex Lindsay, but I was taking a look at this the other day. It's actually pretty cool. It's a device that you can run around and do any type of 3D scans where you go. Now, it kind of reminds me of the video that Mark Rober just came out with, where he strapped a LiDAR on his body, and he actually went into Space Mountain and 3D mapped the whole roller coaster ride and then had it 3D printed, which is probably one of the great reasons why you'd have something like this. But the bigger issue is it's a $3,500 device. So you're not going to be 3D scanning your action figures in with that type of device. What you'd be using it for is like going to, I don't know, the Mayan pyramids and doing a 3D model of that, or possibly going into Magic Mountain and 3D modeling, something like that. But you're definitely going to have to take out your pocketbook to get something like that. As for LiDAR, there's been a lot of pros and cons on LiDAR collection, but for the most part, we get a lot of great responses with LiDAR and be able to do a lot of mapping out. This is going to be perfect for like a real estate agent or anybody that's mapping out a house, so they can really show the directions or the square footage, or any type of building architecture, maybe somebody that's doing land assessing. This will be perfect for them. And then, of course, anybody that's doing 3D modeling.
Hopefully that helped, David. Let's go to our next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. What did you learn from NAB, and what was your most exciting product of this year's show in Vegas?
Yeah, we had a couple of questions about NAB this year. Nobody has raised their hands yet. So I was paying attention to what is going on, and I was trying to see, and I did some research, and I was really surprised. NAB this year was significantly down. I was looking at the official attendance for 2025 was 55,000, according to NAB's stats themselves. I looked it up this morning. And I was comparing it to the biggest show in Las Vegas. They used to be pretty comparable, but this year CES was 145,000. So NAB is about a third the size of the largest show in Las Vegas, and it used to be up there among the biggest. I don't know what that means in terms of the long term. I'm wondering if there's a little bit of kind of historical diminution of it because it's still branded as a broadcaster show. And of course, broadcasting is changing so much into webcasting now and virtual telepresence and all the rest of these things. It may be time for a different branding for them. Maybe they'll rename it something like the GDCS, the Global Digital Content Show or something, because it's not so much broadcast as it's all the equipment for getting an audience and content connected. And I'm thinking more and more about that because it doesn't seem to be going in the growth direction that it did for many years before this new digital era took hold. Guy Cochran, your thoughts? Oops, you're muted, I believe.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you go, what really was the theme this year? And looking at some of the stats that came through, the 55,000 number, and they said that half those people were new attendees. They'd never
Right.
been to an NAB before. So we're seeing this shift right now as we get these new content creators in. And when you think about it, there's not as much production going on in Hollywood, but this creator economy YouTube is paying out. And TikTok is paying out these, content creators just all that money that kind of got. That's the sound I made.
Out of the old broadcast system. Yep.
So yeah, when you look at what a Tide or one of these Snuggle or one of these Palmolive, big advertisers that in the past would have divided it up between print and traditional broadcast commercials, you're now seeing some of this go to Facebook and you're seeing it go to YouTube. And so it's getting dispersed and these people are starting to become more professional, and these tools that we have developed and this knowledge that we've developed over years and years and years is starting to cross over, and you're seeing it in all these tools, lighting, microphones. I mean, we're starting to appeal to these guys, and it's awesome. I mean, I love it. I hate to see my friends that have been in the business 30 years trying to make a transition, but for those that are eager to learn, especially the cloud stuff and switching and all that I'm super interested in. But as far as just raw talent, there's some people out there that are just really getting some eyeballs that would have never been seen before. As far as the second part of the question, what did I see? In After Hours, we actually got to interview the CEO of QuickLink. So QuickLink had Andy Carluccio's laptop, and he was in the booth. He was talking about 2110 from Zoom. So that was one of the whoa, that was fast. Now we're getting Zoom as a contribution out to 2110. So that really was like an aha moment at the show, even though I wasn't there. This is the cool thing about After Hours is we had Omar going around as well as CJ and a couple other people, Grant, that showed us some of the booths. That one was cool. And then Central Control, Omar stopped by Central Control's booth, and he's got this new version 5 of the Central Control software where he was switching very, very quickly a vMix show on a iPad, and he was just tapping and going, this is how fast it is. And as he was tapping, you could just see the responsiveness. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm excited now, because you could build a switcher, a preview, the ability to ride your faders up and down all on one little interface. So customizing an interface to allow somebody like at a church or somewhere where you have a volunteer and you're just like, hey, you just get these buttons. You don't get you don't get access to all of vMix. I just want you to do start the stream, stop the stream, pan tilt, and that's it. I don't want you getting in and messing up my graphics and all the stuff that I built and spent a bunch of time on. You just have to do this part, So Central Control is one of those things that will allow you to do that. So I'm excited about the new release.
Yeah, similar kind of thing. I've been just astonished at how fast it's moved. I was sitting with Oliver last night, Oliver Breidenbach, because he came down to San Diego, and we were sitting in the bar at the hotel, and he pulled together a Mimo Live instance, and he said, well, if you want to switch it on your phone, and in about a minute and a half, he had me switching the cameras on Mimo Live on my phone sitting there. And that's all the time it took. Now, I had an expert sitting next to me. I wouldn't have done that on my own. But it just shows you how diffuse, diverse, and fast-moving this industry is. From never the idea of switching live multicam from my phone into my computer that is hooked up to the internet and hosting a multi-person show to it's now getting to be a commonplace kind of workflow. And that is transformative because it means that everybody can participate in different ways. And, you and your friends can do content if you have people that, or you can do it by yourself if you're multitasking enough. It just seems like a different era is dawning around us with so many new solutions to communication problems. Guy, you wanted to get back in on this?
Yeah, and there was one other booth that we stopped by that was intriguing because it has to do with this show as well. So Opus Clip announced yesterday that you can now not have to download your YouTube video and re-upload it if you want to have it do its little generation of these shorts for you. So it's now you can just give it the URL and it'll just suck it. There's that sound again. It's just a sucking sound. But what we saw at TVU Network's booth is the big heavy iron to do this, where they charge a lot of money to do these very quick shorts, and it's all just AI. It'll just generate. It'll watch your whole show and pull these shorts that then you could throw up on YouTube or on Facebook. But it's amazing to see how fast this stuff is evolving to where you're creating these short bits of content to grab people in to watch the rest of the show. So I love that we're starting to do it here, and it's just, you never know what's going to hit, but when something hits, it gets that viewer to become a subscriber and get into the show. So that's becoming very popular and a trend that I'm starting to see really. I'm sure all of us are seeing this everywhere, where you're seeing 9:16 with the words popping up with the little emojis, Opus Clips everywhere.
Yeah, how many decades was it that you made a TV show that was 42 minutes because you had to put in all the commercial breaks and they came at the same times? And, if you were watching the show and they went to commercial and you saw, oh, let me see what else is on, and there were commercials on all the other channels because they were all doing the same format. And now this different idea of a little snackable piece of content that leads you into a bigger piece of content, but that doesn't have the interruptions that the broadcast system used to be depending upon. So you get a better stream of information, provided that the content creators understand how to keep things interesting and not get you confused. It's just the possibilities have exploded. And you don't have to go through a big conglomerate like NBC or CBS or ABC. Not that there's anything wrong with them. They did great jobs for a long time. But you just get the feeling that it's changing really fast. And it's not about the way we used to do it. It's about the way we can do it in the future. And more people will be able to participate in that, I believe. So we'll see. Interesting topics, and that's part of what we're here for at Office Hours, to talk about this stuff. Let's go to our next question.
Next question is from Rajan Shandil in Los Angeles. Who is using PIKA?
What is PIKA? Courtney Gooden, help us out.
It's a little furry animal.
Pikachu?
I've always wondered what does a Pikachu?
Does it eat? That's the Pikachu.
I think what he's talking about here is the AI, generative AI, video AI that is free apparently, and it is unusual in that it's a video generator, but it allows you, it's multimodal. It allows you to upload pictures and it can incorporate those pictures into a scene. And here's a sample of it morphing between different setups and scenes of the same person getting older and dressing in different, growing up, morphing between all these different characters. And it has coherence between scenes. So that's something that AI video generation is really difficult to do, maintain coherence between one scene and the next scene. And it is apparently free at the moment. You can download it and try it out. I'm going to try it out. It lets you, I don't know if there's a whole lot of guardrails on it. It has a whole lot of features. I'm looking at image creation with Midjourney. You can bring Midjourney created stills in. You can take a still in and tell it to just animate it, and it'll bring it to life and animate it with naturalistic animations for portraits and so on. So has pro mode access, high resolution output, 1080p output, which a lot of the other video generators limit you to a square output or 1024 by 1024. This lets you do 1080p. Flexible subscription plan. So although it does say it's free, I guess they do have a paid version where you can subscribe to it. And it has Pico Turbo, which is a high-speed AI video generation that speeds it up. Some of these video generators can take a fairly long time, 5 to 10 minutes to generate your video for like a 10-second clip. And I'm not sure what the limitation is. I guess it depends on their plan and whether you're paying for accelerated, the length of time that'll let you generate. So I will check it out. PIKA AI. Take a look at it and see. I'm going to watch the review videos first and see if it's interesting enough to download and install.
There you go. If you have questions you want to get into the show queue, but you don't want to go through the main process of officehours.global/join, you can always use askofficehours.global. That's the kind of quick QR code enabled process. I just tossed the QR code up in the bottom of this. You can make a screen grab of that or any other way you want to shoot it, and that'll get you to askofficehours.global. Or you can just type literally that string into your web browser, askofficehours.global. It's a little bit of a different pathway to get questions in, and the main difference is that the questions that are put in through the QR code link or through this askofficehours.global stick around, and we bring them back the next day if we don't get to them. But they're in the regular queue, and you can vote them up and down just like the other ones. If you're in regular officehours.global/join, you get voting privileges on those. So there's still more benefit from getting into the regular queue. But if you just have a quick question, you're out somewhere, or you're listening to this and you type askofficehours.global into your web browser, you'll get to the quick question and answer system. Next question.
Another question from me. Is it possible to get label tape for a Brother P-Touch cube that is designed for cables? The standard label tape doesn't last on cables and seems to be only designed for boxes and bins.
Nobody answered this. I think they do have labeling tape for wire labels. I think I remember that one of the offerings that that they have at P-Touch. Courtney?
Well, the way that they have it shown on their website is to create a flag, and to use like a 1/2-inch label and put your label on and print it twice on there and then bend it around the cable and make it a flag. But I don't like putting those kind of labels on a cable simply because they catch on things and eventually they can get torn off. I like to do the method that we showed earlier. But you can get the narrow, it's available in different widths. And I have the P-Touch portable. I have both. I have the one that's just an appliance that I can't remember that's wireless, Bluetooth connected, and it connects to your computer and just outputs. And it takes up to the 3/4 inch wide down to the I can't remember them or millimeters, 96.
It's like 6 millimeters or something like that. Pretty small.
6 millimeters is very small, but
yeah, maybe it's. I think it's
maybe 45 and 96 millimeters. But anyway, they make them in a variety of widths, and the smaller width will wrap kind of around a 1/4 inch thick cable. And if you cover it with a heat shrink tubing, that keeps it from peeling off.
I was actually looking at my box of P-Touch cartridges to see what the smallest one I have, and maybe I'm right. Maybe it wasn't that small. Maybe it's 8 millimeters. No, there's 9 millimeter. So anyway, get pretty small down there. Let's go on to the next question.
Rajan Shandil, Los Angeles. DaVinci decoder seems to be a missing link to bring cloud back to our studios. Thoughts?
Kai Cochran, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'll let other people fall on that arrow before I bring it into production. There's other devices that we've been using. The Epiphan Pearls have been great. They do cost more, but it's resilient, and it depends on the protocol that it's using and how it traverses the internet. The last thing you want is a cache full or some kind of error. And I've seen. I've seen stuff fall apart, so I'm hesitant to dip my toe. I will definitely not be the first. I'd love to try one, but it's one of those things where there's other solutions out there that can decode a signal and convert it back to baseband. So at that price point, maybe not, but there's other things that are tried and true.
Alexander Knight.
100% I agree with that. I only own one Blackmagic product, and it's one of the reasons why I bought it was because it can do live streaming. Guess what? Can't do live streaming properly. It's not reliable. So I know I'm not the only one there that's had that problem. Look, I love a lot of the products that they do. I think they make some great hardware, but I think the networking stack in a lot of their products that does the encoding of live streaming is definitely, it needs work. And this is why I'm still waiting to see people put the new ATEM Extreme ISO G2 through its paces, because I want to see if they've actually done anything to the networking stack in there to give you more flexibility in the settings for the encoding, and also more reliability. Because it is horrible to be in the middle of a live stream and just have your stream die.
Yes. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. Usually a common theme emerges from each NAB show. What was this year's?
Jeffrey Powers, you walked around a little bit. What was your feeling about the theme?
No, I was not there.
You're not there this year?
I had another job that I was in Houston for. But from the question that we had before, and in thinking about it, because there's been a lot of news, different types of news, and looking at this PDF where they show what the attendance is here. Let me show you what was posted right there. So basically 55,000 attendees, this guy mentioned, 26% international attendees, 1,000 press, which is pretty interesting. I think that's down from, everything is down from from years prior. And I think the big thing is just the uncertainty of the next year of any type of hardware production. The uncertainty, because if I was to get ready for NAB and then find out that shipping, being able to produce and ship something would cost me 125% more to do, I would probably kind of sit back and go, wait a minute, maybe we should hold off on our new production until we get a hold of our old production and see if we're going to still be a viable company in the next 6 months. So I'm thinking a lot of people just kind of said, hey, let's dial back for a little bit and see what's going on in this new era as we move forward, because we don't want to put our foot in and then get it chomped off by a piranha.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, I didn't attend this year either, but I got kind of the virtual experience with Omar going around, and I was paying attention to the news that was coming in and out. And it didn't seem like anything jumped at me. Like normally you see like drones or 4K or 8K, something really pops out. But this year I would think that NDI with its 6.2 release coming up, Ross actually in their keynote, which is very much worth watching. It was about an hour long, but they announced the Ultrix can now have NDI cards that go inside, which when you get a company like Ross now adopting NDI, that tells me, we're on the way. So there was a couple other NDI specific announcements with NDI Bridge and some of the hardware. Viz had that little box that we showed the audio converter that looks pretty promising. So as we start to realize that there's more that can be done through NDI Bridge, I think we're seeing this theme of, hey, you can control things remotely. So remote production, in addition to, like Jeffrey was showing, it says artificial intelligence, cloud virtualization, creator economy, sports, and streaming. And we talk a lot about this on all of these on this show. As far as what's going to emerge out as the theme, I think a lot of people are into AI and cloud in these circles. The PTZ cameras with the Sony AM7 getting better. Greg Gibson did a bunch of demos on the Sony stage showing how great that auto tracking is. Sony had it in their booth where they had a pool table, and seeing that stuff, Grant went into the booth and showed us how well he spent a significant amount of time, because him and Blue are going to buy, Blue has a studio where he is going to buy those, and they can legit replace, I hate, as a camera operator, I hate to be replaced by a robot, but that time has come where for a 7-day event, if you don't want to put somebody up in a hotel and pay for all their meals and their flight and everything, it's becoming more realistic to buy 5 of these cameras and let them run. And, you use a touchscreen to say who you want. And if you want 2 people, it's that sophisticated now. You could say you want 2 people in the shot, or you could say prioritize this person, and I want a close-up, or I want a medium shot, or I want a wide shot. So that's kind of sophistication is emerging as time goes on, and just the chips get faster and artificial intelligence gets smarter. There's a lot of development that was showcased this year.
Yeah, as I said earlier in the show, NAB is National Association of Broadcasters. And on Guy's slide there, broadcast was not one of the emerging technologies. So this really has been a global sea change. And I think that's going to continue over the course of time. Whether you're talking about IP, Internet Protocol, or IT, Information Technologies. I hear them both used, and I guess it depends on which side of the thing. If you're in a corporate office, IT department is generally what's there. But overall, the idea of putting all your video into an internet protocol and distributing it globally that way has changed everything already. I mean, we're looking back at that transition, and that's how I feel about it. There's not a lot of energy in the broadcast world, the old terrestrial side. Maybe there'll still be uses for it, and I know some eyeballs are there, but that's not where the energy is. So we're in transition to a new world, one way or another. Jeffrey Powers, you had some thoughts.
I wanted to add to this AI thing because, I just got done doing my review of the OBSBot Tail 2, and I was very impressed with the AI. The event that I went to this week, that we were using some new software for AI tracking, and it's amazing. As Guy said, it will attach to, and I have Simon, which is basically a dummy head that I put in this place if I need to do anything, and I put him right behind me, and I moved around human head versus something else, and it was tracking it. I was at a live event, and it was tracking the guitar over the person. So when I could zoom in on the guitar and the fretboard, which is always a favorite of anybody, it was staying on the guitar no matter what they did, and they moved around a lot, which is great. So yeah, the world of AI when it comes to that, and you can do, as Guy mentioned, you could do that. You could do that on site. You could do that at home. The production has really started to shift away, and it'll be interesting to see what we're going to be seeing in the world of automated stuff. But then again, we have to pump our own gas instead of some gas station attendant doing that. So that's how the world works sometimes.
Yes. We're all doing our own switching instead of sitting behind the double glass. It's now up to you to get it done. Next question.
This one's from Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. Discovered the Osee brand during office hours. Looks like they offer some solid, cost-effective gear. Anyone have experience with their products? Thoughts on quality?
Courtney Gooden's going to start us off here. Courtney?
I have not used it. I really like their design, their concepts, and they've been going after the ATEM lines here. Like their GoStream Duet 8, it has 8-channel video switcher. It's $800 and takes HDMI, SDI, NDI, RTMP. It has SuperSource, XLR audio inputs. All the stuff that we've been asking for on the ATEMs for years, and they just finally started to address some of those needs now. Osee sorry, not Osee, there's no G in there. Osee has addressed all of those needs and seems to me incorporating them into these video switchers. But since I haven't tried one, I'm not sure how well they hold up in the field as far as, durability goes. Most of us here are so heavily invested in the ATEM, world that all talks to each other with the same software controller over all the switchers. I'm not sure. It's difficult for us to step into something different or incorporate something different that's outside of that controls, the control software of Blackmagic design. So it'd be interesting. I don't know if Guy has tried one out. I'd like to see a head-to-head comparison between the Osee 8-input switcher and the new one that will be coming out from Blackmagic.
Guy, your thoughts?
Yeah, so this brand, I've been paying attention to them in their Facebook forums to see what the users are saying. I haven't used one myself. I've just been watching what's going on behind the scenes. And I was impressed with this one until I figured out that due to what people are saying, it works for what you'd want it to do, because you could see the first 4 inputs. So it's an 8-input switcher. This is the Osee GoStream Duet that was announced. It looks like an ATEM ISO, and you would think because it has this kind of familiar interface that it could do everything that an ATEM could do. But the one word that I'll say is mix effect. Like mix effect makes the $799 price point not seem as appealing. And then these buttons, the the 8 buttons, 4 of them are the HDMI and SDI input. So for the right person, this is a sweet little switcher because it does fulfill the needs that we've been asking for in an ATEM with the HDMI and HDSDI on the same machine. But if you want to do NDI or any of the SRT inputs, that's what the other 4 are. And so it's not, you can't just do all 4 HDMI, all 4 SDI at the same time. It's only those on the first 4 channels. So be very aware at that $799 price point what you're actually getting. So again, mix effect and the ability to be on a network and have 5 different people control the audio, the graphics. It's all just familiar. So I think the ecosystem for Blackmagic is still a win. But if that's your budget, if that's what you got to get, and you're just doing a basic church sermon or something like that, I'd say that with the user feedback on the original ones, it's a strong product.
Let's go to our next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida. Guy or anyone know what headset Mike Grant and crew used on the live rooftop stream from NAB a few days ago?
Yeah, I think we covered that on yesterday's show, and they actually, who was it? Mickey actually found the exact one that they're using. But Alexander Knight, do you remember?
Yeah, it was Audio Technica BPHS1 headset, which is a more affordable broadcast headset.
There you go. Guy, did you have a thought on it?
Yeah, that's the model number. If budget, if you have a little bit more budget, the one that you'll see on NBA. So I'm wearing the headphones that are the same headphones that are on the HMD-26-2s. Basically, this is the HMD 26-2s with the cool ability to not only expand the headset, but you can also flip up the side here. So when you have them on, if you just need to quickly listen to somebody else, you can flip it on. And then on the ends of these, you could wire them up how you want. I have mine wired up with an XLR and a 1/4 inch, so that way it can plug into familiar things that we have, but other trucks will have these with a 5-pin. But if you're shopping for those, I'd recommend listening to and looking at these, unless you just need to buy, like Grant brought 4 of these, and at $219, that's a nice price. These are more like $400, so kind of get what you pay for.
Yeah, I thought the audio quality was exceptional. I thought they could have used, and we talked about that on the show yesterday, that Mickey said you can actually put a Rycote softy or some kind of furry on top of that. They were having a little bit of wind problem up on top of that roof, but the quality of the audio coming out of that was really nice. I thought the voices really sounded good. Let's go to our next question.
Rajan Shandil in Los Angeles. Sony Cloud and the app monitor and control received updates. Has anyone used their new products?
I have not heard of anyone talking about it. You know, right now we're still a little short-staffed. People have been traveling. I know Alex is away doing things. So it may not be that this is the show where everybody we come back to full strength and have the diversity on our on our show. Excuse me. Anyway, I don't know of anybody who has taken a look at updates or things like that, or who uses a Sony Cloud day in and day out in production. So that's going to be a question to maybe hold on to and resubmit when the panel is a little bit different. Let's go to the next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Will it benefit Blackmagic Design to support just their own products in the cloud, or might limitations hurt acceptance of their cloud offerings?
Jeffrey, what do you think?
It's benefited them so far. I mean, look at where they are. They haven't brought too many third parties into play here. People keep clamoring at wanting NDI inside of Blackmagic, and Blackmagic saying, no, we're not going to do it. And then we're going to create our own. I think it's just like with the Apple environment, is like Apple wants to do it themselves. Maybe they'll bring in a third party if they absolutely need to. But for the most part, when they are ready to supply their own version of it, then they'll get rid of that third party and make it happen, because then they can control the narrative. They can control the support of the product.
Courtney?
Yeah, Blackmagic, the nice thing about Blackmagic, it's an end-to-end infrastructure. You know, they make cameras, they make editing, they make audio software, editing software, they make the switches, they make the hubs, they make all of the little boxes that convert signals from one form to another. So they're pretty much end-to-end. You can stay within the Blackmagic world, and they're priced competitively. So it's kind of hard to mix anything into that infrastructure which all talks to itself, and it has an open API, which you can write your own software, and a lot of people have done that to write their own interface software to the Blackmagic control universe. So, they've kind of covered it end to end, and they have products that are affordable from the high end down to the low end. So they cover a whole broad spectrum of users.
That's pretty much going to do it for our show today. Thank you very much for taking the time to spend it with Office Hours. Thank you very much to our producers, all of you who ask questions into the stream. You make the show happen every single day, and you held up your end once again this time. A lot of great questions. Thank you. To the back-end crew who do their amazing work behind the scenes, thank you. It takes a village to make this happen every day, and they are there consistently, and I don't know what we'd do without them. And to our panelists, the people who come here and freely give their expertise out over the air every single day, thank you all for being here and joining it and trying to help make this show what it is. The Talk Traversal today, if you had gone around to people to get these questions answered, you would have traveled 27,000 miles. That's 43,000 kilometers, 212 million bananas for scale. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. See you then. Okay, I've got to run off to the next meeting. I'll see you guys all tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Adios, amigos.